All right, so we're going to get started in a couple minutes. I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of time to hop on the call. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. This is the World Vue Summit collaboration of World Vue Meetup events from around the world. And our purpose is to really bring all the Vue communities together and create a place where we can all share resources and knowledge. And every location can provide a speaker, and we'll broadcast around the world, bringing new and seasoned speakers to everyone. So if you're interested or your community is interested in joining us for our next event, please reach out to me or any of the speakers or contributors that you see on this call today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our host. So hey, my name is Maria Lamardo, and we have Anne also. Anne, do you want to introduce yourself? You might need to unmute.
Okay. Hi, my name is Annie. Nice to meet you guys. I'm the co-organizer of Vue Beijing, and I'm also a front-end developer. And I will co-host with Maria today. Hope you enjoy. So today our events will be bilingual in China. Akadu's amazing Akadu gave our interpretation today. So Chinese audience, don't worry about it. Just scan the QR code and you can hear the amazing interpreting in Chinese and you will understand the topic. So just scan the QR code. So 在中国的观众朋友们，如果你们对英语听力觉得有一点难的话，可以扫一下我们 Akadu 的二维码，然后我们的同声传译员会同声翻译我们今天的科技的分享，所以不要担心你听不懂任何主题，只要扫描这个二维码，然后听我们的同声翻译员来翻译我们今天的主题就可以啦。I'm done.
Thank you. And also we have a link to this in the Eventbrite if you need translations. Where I want to talk a little bit, thank you to our sponsors who made this event possible. We have Akadu who's providing our translation, and then also our silver sponsor, Epcont. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. And if you are interested in chatting with us during the event, please join us on Discord. This is the World Vue chat. This is going to be an invite to the VueLand Discord for Vue. There you can also find all of the Q&A questions for each of the speakers, which is also linked in the Eventbrite. So again, this is a list of all of the communities that came together for this specific event. So shout out to all of you and thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you're interested in joining our next event, please reach out to me or any of the speakers or contributors that you see on the call today. So Anne's going to tell us what we have coming up in the next hour.
Sorry, we missed the Akadu guy to introduce Akadu. So make sure the Chinese audience can understand now the meeting. Can we let Alvaro in so he can explain how to use Akadu? So 就中国的小伙伴，然后我们阿卡杜的小伙伴会介绍一下阿卡杜怎么使用，然后你就能够用中文听我们今天的分享啦。然后让我们欢迎一下 Avro。Avro，are you here?
Hello, can you listen to me?
Yeah, 我们可以听到。
Hi, thank you Vue community to allowing us to sponsor the event. I don't want to take too much time. I just want to say that for everyone to know, Acadu is a platform that live stream content in different languages. We believe that everyone has the right to learn, no matter the language they speak. That's why today you're going to talk about one interesting topic. We want to give opportunity to the Chinese community also to be able to understand. Now, how does it work? Just scan the QR code. There you can see the live video. You can see the button where you can click to listen the original audio or the translated audio. I also want to say thank you to the interpreters that are located in Tianjin and in Beijing who are doing the live translation of today's event. So thank you, interpreters. That's it. Enjoy the event. 大家希望你们可以享受今天的活动。阿卡杜在赞助实时翻译。通过这个二维码，你们可以加入阿卡杜平台，然后你们可以选择原声的声音或者翻译的音频。谢谢大家。
谢谢阿卡杜，然后我们中国的小伙伴们，谢谢。然后你们可以扫一下二维码，这样就可以听到我们今天的活动分享啦。So could you please, Maria, could you please change the slides?
Here we go.
Yeah, thank you. So in next 1 hour, we will hear Vue Beijing. Jonas will share about Chakra UI View and Vue Pool. Vinayak will share about Janak. So 在接下来的sorry, I forgot. So the audience can use the interpreter, the professionals. Okay. Let's welcome Vue Beijing.
Seems like we're having some technical difficulties with the slides, but the first community that's going to be speaking is Vue Beijing. I'm not quite sure. Okay, so for now.
Okay. All right. Are we good to go?
Yep, you can share your screen.
All right, excellent. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. I'm going to try to share my screen very briefly. It looks like someone else is sharing theirs. Okay, just one moment. Okay. Okay, brilliant. Yes, good evening, good morning, everybody around the world. My name is Jonathan Bakebwa, and I live in China. I'm originally from Uganda, but I've been living in China for the last 4 years. And today I'm going to be talking about Chakra UI Vue. But before I do, I just wanted to say a little bit about Vue Beijing, the Vue Beijing community. If you'd like to get in touch with me on WeChat, like that's how to do so for the Chinese audience. Beijing Vue community has been organized. We started organizing meetups maybe around the beginning of 2019, March to be specific. And we've been holding meetups in different parts of Beijing, in Zhongguancun, in the Zhongguancun area. And it's been a wonderful experience. So what we've been having is different people from different communities come over and we hold meetups. And we also have been having talks as well. And these are just some pictures of what it looks like during some of our events. And we've also hosted a few workshops as well. And we hold workshops so people can come and they can also share as well. And we're always looking for people to come share what knowledge they have. And in this particular slide, you can see on the left, we had Asta. Some of you might know the creator of Vapor.js. He's also the creator of the Vue component documentation. And he graced us with a talk on Vapor.js, and he gave a really interesting talk. And we also hold workshops as well. This was an intro to Vue Beijing workshop that we had. And we're looking to see how to organize more as well. So if you're looking to be a part of a community and to be a part of people who are interested in Vue.js as well and in JavaScript in general, the Vue Beijing has been that for different people in Beijing as well. And so sometimes we also just hang out. We occasionally hold a few events to just like come and like sit and talk. We've had a cup of coffee and codes, if we might call them that as well. And so that's the Vue Beijing community. We're always looking for speakers, people to volunteer. So you're very welcome. Feel free to reach out to me on WeChat or reach out to Anne as well on WeChat. These are our QR codes. And you can also check out our website, vuebeijing.io, and our Twitter at Beijing Vue. All right, having said that, thank you all very much for coming today. Today I'm going to be talking about Chakra UI Vue, and I'll be sharing a little bit about what it is. And so Chakra UI Vue is a component library that I built for Vue.js that allows you to build accessible Vue applications relatively fast. The idea is that it gives you low-level primitives with a very flexible styling API that you can use to build custom UIs. And so if you look over on at our documentation, I think I'll just use this page. We build all our components using strictly following the WAI ARIA standards. So all UI widgets that have an authoring practice that is prescribed by the WAI ARIA committee are all built according to that spec in Chakra UI Vue. And using UI components gives us that opportunity because we can abstract this level, that level of complexity at the component level. And so it makes it easy for us to do so. We also have a very flexible theming API. It gives you the ability to style your applications in using style properties. And it's also composable. So like I said at the beginning, it has low-level primitives like box component, flex, grid components, and stack components that you can compose to build components, build your own components and applications. So this is an example of what it's like to build like an Airbnb card. This was taken from Airbnb's website. And yeah, so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to go into the documentation and just try to build something using Chakra UI so I can show what the experience is really like to build with Chakra UI Vue. I'm going to try to rebuild this Vercel login dashboard. I believe some of us have used Vercel before. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but we're going to try to rebuild this login page using Chakra UI Vue. And I'll see if I can do that in the next maybe 15, 20 minutes. And yeah, cool. So we have a few starters on the documentation. So I'll just go over there, look for the Vue starter. And I will, hopefully, everything, my internet connection will be very good. So yeah, so we have a few starters. And if you're using a Vue application, we also have a Vue CLI plugin. And so for you to like install Chakra UI Vue in your Vue app, you just need to run Vue add Chakra UI, and that will install Chakra UI Vue and into your project as well. So yeah, so this is what the starter looks like on Code Sandbox. So I'm gonna first begin by removing everything out of the app here. Look, I don't think we're gonna need all this. So I will first empty out the entire template. And I also don't think that we're going to use everything in the script as well. So I might as well just delete the whole thing. So here, the root, we're gonna create a template. And I'm gonna also try to create a few components. So just by looking at the UI, we can see that there's like a nav bar, and it looks like it's a display flex as well. And there's also this very simple form in here. So I'm going to start by creating a few components. I had already I'd already started this before. You can see So I'll start by creating the navbar, and I'll remove everything so I can create it from scratch. So one of the primitives that Chakra UI gives you is a flex component. So here in the docs, you can see the flex. It has a few props as well. You can change the direction. You can wrap the entities. You can align and justify your content as well. And so to do that, I'll just copy this and paste it in our script. It's already there. Okay, and that's good. So I'll just find a snippet here that has something that we want to use. And here we have the flex component. Oh, by the way, the examples in the Chakra UI docs are completely, you can change them, you can edit them. So feel free to use them in a way that you would like to use them as well. And so I'm gonna type in here navbar, and I'll go into the app component, and I will import the navbar component in here. And register it. And I'm also going to take another flex from here because I think we'll probably need to use it as well. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it in here. I'll register that as well. So in uppercase, and okay, great. And so now I can put our navbar in here just to make sure that it's working. Okay, brilliant. So we have a navbar, and cool. Okay. So now I will go back into our navbar component, and we'll give it here. Okay, so since this is a flex component, what I will do is I'm going to make this a box to be so that it's a full width component. Chakra UI also exports a box component. It's basically a div that you can apply style props to, and so now the navbar fills the entire width of the application, so that, of the window. So that's good. So in our navbar here, what we want to have is we want to render it as a nav element. So Chakra UI allows you to change the underlying element using the as prop. It's an as polymorphic prop. It can also accept a component as well. So it can render the children of the consumer inside of it as well. So here we have the SVG. If I'm not mistaken, I could see that Vercel has an SVG element here. So I'm gonna inspect this and try to steal that out of the DOM, the actual markup code, to be exact. Okay, there it is. So I can just copy the element, and in Chakra UI, I can paste it there. And so now we have the SVG, and we can modify the height as well to make this 20. So you can see that in Chakra UI, since we have like a theme as well, you're able to access the variables in your theme through these style properties. And so in this case, we have a background color of white, and we want to change the padding on this component. And so we do that by giving it a padding Y of say 4. So 4. So Chakra UI uses a 4-pixel grid. So in order to get like a padding Y of 16 pixels on the top and bottom, you multiply 4 by 4 to get 16 pixels. And yeah, so that's great. So we also want to give it a border color of black, and we'll give it a border style. We could say I think it was 1 pixel solid, if I remember, if that's what it looked like. Yeah. Well, that looks good. And okay, so things are coming together. And we also want to give it a padding X. So this space here looks something around maybe close to 100 pixels, but I think that would be too big for our viewport width. So I'll probably do something around 64. So that will be around 16. And so that will give, we'll put this around there. Okay, and I think this is looking okay. I also saw a couple of buttons here. So what I will do is I'm going to go to Chakra UI and I'm going to find the buttons. And it looks like you can also do small size buttons. So what I will do is I'm going to import the button component into this application. And I'll register it there. And so Chakra UI also has a directive called vChakra. If you go to our docs, you can see it at the bottom there. And what it allows you to do is to style native elements as though they were Chakra UI Vue components. And so this is really powerful. It accepts normal style props as long as you apply the vChakra directive. And it also allows you, it also accepts an object, and it will also give you a function. It also accepts a function that provides the theme object as an argument. So you can do something like this if you need to access the actual variables in your theme. I can see my battery is at like 7%. Hopefully my battery doesn't die out very soon. Maybe I'll try to get my thing. So with vChakra, I need to just apply the vChakra directive here, and I can give it, say, a height. Oh, it already has a height, so I'll give it a margin right of auto. And so it looks like, oh, okay. So now we applied the vChakra, and so it reads this attribute as 20, in our theme, the value of 20 in our theme, but this is not what we want. What we want it to be is 20 pixels. So that's good. Okay, so we have a button. So I'm gonna put a few buttons in here. See button, and I'll just say login. Okay, and I'll give it a size of extra small, maybe. I think small looked good, or even extra small. Okay, great, and we can replicate this here, and so we can also give these buttons a margin right of maybe 3. So this is about 12 pixels, spacing of about 12 pixels. And okay, so the next thing we can do is include a form as well in the component. So I had already pre-built a form, and what I will do is, because my battery is very low, I doubt I'll be able to continue very long. I'm just gonna import this form into the template, but we can look at it right from here. So it has the root is a flex component, and it also has a stack. So what the stack does is that it allows you to equally space its children and with an equidistant like space. So if I came into this example and I copied out this box and I put it right after this box here as well, what it's going to do is that it's going to render the exact same space, and we can change the spacing as well. So this 5 is 5 times 4, that makes this 20 pixels. So we can make this even 10. And so that would make this a space of 40 pixels in between. And you can change the order as well, the direction of the stack as well, of the children. And you can also reverse the order of the layout by passing the is reversed prop.
Hi, Jonas. I'm sorry for interrupting, because the audience is saying your laptop is dying. So please charge it. It's only 6%. Yeah, please.
All right. Let me go pick my charger, and I'll plug it in really quickly.
sorry, awkward time. I made him leave. Well, for the life of his laptop, it definitely worth it. I don't want his laptop die.
This was like a risky talk. We could have had a bet going of what was gonna end first, his battery or talk.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I think we're safe now. I think everyone's happy. How much time do I have left, Maria?
You have about 8 minutes left.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna try to replicate the form in these in those 8 minutes. Cool. Thank you everyone for allowing me to get my charger. Okay, great. So the next thing we're going to do is throw our form inside our application, and so for that, what I will do is I will just come inside here and create a new form. I'll call this form component to view, and at the root, I need a flex component as well. So I will come back to our documentation and find this. I make use of these copy buttons because they're really very helpful for me. And cool. And so I'll then register here the flex component. Oops. Okay, great. So at the root here, we'll have the flex again. And so here we want I want to first write something here. I'll just call this form just to make sure that it shows up in our application. And then I will import this. Oh, that's not what I wanted to copy. I'll call this form and form component. And I'll register our form here. Okay, brilliant. Yay, everything is working. So at the root here, let's go back to our UI just so we can get like a few references. It's because we have a heading here, and then we have a few other components here. So for this, we could use a stack. But first, let's get our heading in, and then we can put everything else in later. So Chakra UI also has has a heading component, and the heading renders a lot of other children. Can render any element as a child. So we normally, of course, recommend to keep your applications accessible to use the normal heading elements. So yeah, so we'll take the heading component and import it and register it. And okay, so I think the content of this is to log into Vercel. And so Chakra UI by default renders an H2 for your heading. So you'll need to change this to an H1 so that it's accessible. And yeah, so we can also see that our text is not exactly centered. So what we can do here is we're going to change the flex direction by using the direction prop to column, and we can then align center. We can also justify center as well. Well, really, we don't need to because we don't know the height of the entire page. So we'll give this a padding top of say 100 pixels. If that, okay, that's maybe too much. I'll make that 70. You can also, maybe the better thing for me to do at this point is to do something like 16, because we have this value in the theme. If you want to keep your application UI is consistent, this is what you do. And so then we have, under this, we have the input, and then we also have the stack. So Maybe just by looking at the clock, it doesn't seem like I have a lot of time. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to steal the stack component and the inputs as well that it has as children, and make them part of this form component here, like that. And a couple of other things that I might have forgotten to take are some of the imports in here. So we forgot to take the stack, the button, the input group as well. I keep clicking the correct items. And I'm hoping I registered them correctly. All right. Okay. Good. Everything's coming together. And I think this has a margin top of, I think that was also 16, if I'm not mistaken. That's a bit too much. Let's do half that. And yeah, that's great. So now we have a nice, really quickly built login Vercel page. I know I cheated because of time. But yeah, so this is the idea. So this application is also accessible and you can modify components to style them. Even though Chakra UI gives you like these UI components, I like to let people know that you are flexible enough to change the underlying UI. So you can change the size, you can change the colors, you can change the font size, all using variables that you have inside the theme object. And you can also change that as well. And you can get more information about that in the documentation. We have future plans as well to support Vue 3, where we'll allow you to predefine how the UI components are built from scratch. And if you want to follow more about what we're doing, we have a GitHub repository, like every other open source project. Please go over and check out our issues if you want to contribute as well. We're always looking for ideas, and we're always looking for contributors as well. And yeah, that's what I wanted to show us about Chakra UI View. And yeah, maybe I'll conclude my slides. And by saying thank you to everybody for listening to me for the last couple of minutes. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm always on Twitter. You can reach me at codebender828. And I'm also on WeChat, so you can scan the QR code to reach me on WeChat, and I'll add you to our Vue Beijing group. And yeah, please tell me what you think and ask any questions you have. We can answer them at the end of the session by text. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Cool, you make it. Your laptop is living. So let's welcome Vue.js Puna to bring next amazing topic.
Yeah. Hello. Hey guys. Thank you for having me on the chat. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So today I'm going to present something that is very close to my heart. What I've created is basically a scaffolding. It's called as Janak. It's a tool which gives you an opportunity to create Vue.js applications out of the box with a lot of housekeeping stuff taken care for you. So let's begin. So let's start. Like, who am I? So my name is Vinayak. I'm currently the Vuepress core team member. I'm also working as a front-end tech lead at Juicebox. We are hiring, by the way. You can reach me on Twitter, GitHub, LinkedIn, and I also host some of the events in Vue.js Pune. So I'd like to share some images of the last meetup that we've had. And fortunately for us, the meetup that we had Derek Gusto with us. He gave a really awesome talk on Vue for Vue Bees. So if you So everyone was like really excited to learn more about Vue, and the community has started to grow a lot recently. But due to the current situations of coronavirus all across the world, it is a bit difficult for people to get together and contribute together. So yeah, that's a little bit about the community. So moving on to what Janak is. So Janak basically in Hindi it basically translates to a generator. A generator is something that you use to create something, right? So Janak is basically a generator which generates a lot of scaffoldings. So you don't need to worry about why like you don't need to worry about all the housekeeping stuff because Janak takes care of that. Janak also there's another meaning for Janak as well. Janak means father, and as father provides stuff for their children, Janak provides you a lot of out of the box things that make sure that you only focus on the things that matter, and that is the component or the library that you're trying to build. So why? So the reason would be why was Jana created? So as I previously mentioned during the last year's meetup when Gusto came to Pune, one of the questions that he asked was like, how many here are library creators? And yeah, the answer was really shocking. It was just one or two folks who have actually contributed to the Vue ecosystem. And basically, this gave me a motivation to create a simple generator which would like which would help newcomers to contribute to provide their ideas. I mean, to provide a platform to their ideas without them having to take care of all the housekeeping stuff like testing, like deployment, like publishing to the package registry and stuff. I was also contributing to create Nuxt app. So if shout out to Nuxt, Nuxt is really awesome. And Create Nuxt app was basically built using Egoist's Sao.js, and Sao was something that I was also exploring, and then Vue composition API was released, and it was like a really nice thing. Like everyone was interested. Like, whoa, this is groundbreaking stuff. And I was like, okay, then we can build something that would provide you support, or that would make your life easy to create Vue 3 apps. So this was the reason why Janak was created. When was Janak created? It was created. It was in my head, but it was created during my contributions in Create Nuxt app, and I was also working on a internal product for Geospark, which required some scaffolding to work the project or the application out of the box. In the meantime, like we even had few meetups, and at that time I was like, we should actually have something that would enable everyone, not just Vue developers or seasoned Vue developers, or even React or Svelte developers. So for them to easily contribute to Vue ecosystem, I thought of creating a simple tool which would help them create the components. The how is basically how do you use Jana? So I'll just okay, just a second. Let me how do I exit? Yeah. So let's do a demo. I'll create a small application using Jana, and we'll publish it on npm registry. So so the so let's begin. So we do let's do number format. Say run npx Jana, and the so v number format is the component library that you want to build, or the plugin or the wrapper. It's up to you what you want to call. Yeah, yeah. So it provides a nice CLI. Thanks to Egoist, who has created Sao. I mean, it's a lifesaver. Yeah. So what's the name of the new package? It's called me number format, It provides a way to interact with INTL number format. What's your name? My name is Vinayak. So GitHub username. It's this. It's your email. It's this. What's the website? It's this. Okay, that's it. So it'll create a new directory called vnumber format. Yeah, I just saw this, so I need to have a new update rolled out soon. Yeah, awesome. So Janak has created a new directory for us with all the default settings out of the box. So as per the instructions in the CLI, I'll just go to the vnumber format. Yeah, and I'll just open it up in VS Code. Yeah. So as you can see, there are a lot of files that are here out of the box. Uh, I had to, the current version of Janak, it uses Rollup to build your application. So as you can see, it automatically builds different versions. It builds an ESM, a common JS build, a UMP build, as well as it has a minified version as well. So if you want to publish your component as a min version, which you can use in your applications, uh, Janak will create a min config as well. And in the source, if you see, there are two files. One is called the package. The other one is the index file, which basically exposes the package. So what we'll do is we'll just rename this. Okay, and this number format. Okay, awesome. If you look around the repository or the spit out code, you'll find out that a browserlint is out of the box. There's editor config, there's ESLint. Okay, there are some linting errors. There's ESLint out of the box. There's Prettier out of the box. You have Ava test runner out of the box, which gives you ability to do snapshot testing as well as doing basic unit testing of your applications. It has Babel preset out of the box. It gives you commit lint and uh, Husky out of the box. So these two basically provide you with Git hooks to ensure that your commits are linted before they are actually committed in the pull requests or the code. You have JS config so that uh, uh, you can do relative imports and your package.json. So if you see, the package.json is also automatically updated with the inputs that I have entered while generating the package. You can also see we have a different number of scripts written. So these scripts ensure you can bundle your application and test it yourself. You can do a lot of lint fixing. It fixes your ESLint as well as prettier settings. And another major thing that I've implemented in Janak is I've added Algolia's ship.js. So ship.js, if you look at the documentation, it gives you automated release and changelog generation. So it's a really awesome tool. Shout out to Algolia and the ship.js team. It's a really awesome tool. And if you look at the dependencies and the dev dependencies, the composition API is out of the box. And then you have the developer dependencies, which are required while you are developing your application. And yeah, so this is your package.json. There's a README also, which is generated out of the box. So yeah, so moving on to the demonstration. Just give me a second. Yeah, okay. So let's create a div tag and let's spit out a computed property called INTL number format. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is we also need a computed imported from the composition API. We'll take some properties. Let's say one of the properties is payload. Forgot the it's of type number. And it's required true, and then we'll take something called as the format. So if you look at the documentations of INTL, so I'll just open up the number format. Yeah. So if you look at the documentation, it takes one option is it takes the locale, it takes the options object, and then it takes the format object.
I think we've lost sound. Yeah, Vinajak, I don't think we can hear you. Oh no, I think we've lost them. Right, let's see. Hello, hello.
Maybe because the internet is frozen right now. So
Yeah, I think you have to
yeah,
go.
let's just
Oh,
wait.
he's
Yeah,
back.
sorry.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Oh,
internet
cool.
issue.
You're back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, yeah. So where was I? Just a second. Yeah. So it takes the number as
Might,
the input, and
you might need to
uh,
share your screen.
oh, sorry,
No problem.
my bad.
We'd
Yeah.
love to see your face too. Don't worry.
Yeah. Is the screen visible?
I see it on Zoom. I think it just takes a little bit on YouTube. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're good.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So, so this demo that we are doing, it takes the payload as a number that we are trying to send, and the format will be a type object, which will take your the parameters that you're sending it to the number format function. So we have set up the props. Now let's set up our application. So if you look at the Vue composition API docs, you'll find that we have set up the props. Now let's set up our application. So since I have the props, I'll just send these to. I'll just send the props to the setup method. Okay, just a second. Okay, I'm facing some internet issues. Okay, so let's create a computed method which returns uh, it returns basically. So I'm just, since I don't know what the time is, it just returns a new INTL format. So as you can see, I've set the format to accept locales as well as the options. So options is basically the options that you send, and locale is the locale that you enter. So it takes two arguments. So first one is the locales, second one is the options, and then you are actually formatting the payload that is being sent from the component. And yeah, I think we should then return the ITL method.
So it seems we're having some connection issues. Let me just ask all the speakers and contributors who are on the call to take off their video. Maybe that would help, unless you're one of the hosts who's speaking. And of course, the speaker. Let's see if we can. Um, Okay, so he's coming back. He's back. Perfect.
Hello.
You're still muted though.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
What I'll do is
cool.
I'll stop my yeah. What I'll do is I'll stop my video so that the bandwidth is not hampered. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what we the next step is basically to publish the component on npm registry. So what I'm going to do is since we are streaming it live, I cannot show the tokens. So I have already created a .env and I'll just replace. So if you look at this right now, I'm in the process of using the npm auth token while building the workflow for ship.js trigger. So yeah, so I'm just gonna copy the .env to yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that should be it. And the next step, if we want to release the app, we first need to have it on the GitHub version control. So what? Okay, this is version controls. Okay, view. This is the number format. Okay, and repo. I'm just gonna publish this repo number format. I'll give this code private. Okay, and it's 6. Yeah, so another thing, if you try to enter something like which is not, which does not follow the commit conventions, it will just break. So let's say if I do a like this and then say, or if I do initial commit, and if I try to do that, uh, then the git hooks will run behind the scenes and it will give me an error saying okay, there's even a linting error, but okay, let's fix the lint first. Npm run lint fix. Oh, fix. Okay. Yeah, there was an error in Ava. Okay, so it fixed all the linting errors. Next thing would be if I try to publish or if I try to push the code in not a semantic way, it basically gives me an error saying yeah, I'll just show you the error. So yeah, so it found two problems. It did not the input was this, the subject may not be empty, and the type. So we did not specify the type, so we'll just specify it's a feature. So it's a feature. Yeah, just published to the okay. I published the package. Just give me a second. I'll add the npm token in the repository secret section. What's it called as? It's called as npm auth token. Yeah. Okay, that should do it. So yeah, if you look at this, it has created a um, it has created the repository. All the plugins, all the commits are there. The source is also provided, and if if I just then, so if I want to do a new release, I'll just do npm run release prepare. Yeah. Yep. Okay, I need to do some changes so that ship.js knows that there's a new version to be released. Okay, let's do. Okay, this is yeah. Let's do a normal export as well. Yeah. Yeah, so it asks you for the next version. Let's say it's 1.1.0. Yeah. Awesome. So ship.js automatically created a new pull request for us, which will create a new release. They have also provided the instructions on how to create a new release. So if you just do a squash and merge, uh, yeah, squash and merge, awesome. And if you go to the GitHub action section of things, you'll see there's a new release. Awesome. Cool. Okay, the tests failed because could not find module JS DOM. Okay, let's fix that. npm. Let's check if JS DOM is present. Then the package.js JS DOM global is there. Yeah, so JS DOM is basically required for Ava to run its tests, uh, and since it did not find that, the tests failed. Okay, so I'll just push it. Okay, since we deleted this. Okay, one second. So I'll do is I'll just reset the head. Okay. Okay. Let's discard these changes. Okay. So let's install this DOM. Let's run the tests before we create a new pull request. Oh, okay. Yeah, my bad. It was because in the test, we are actually referencing package where we renamed it to number format. Yeah, yeah, silly mistake. Okay, test 2 pass 2. Awesome. Fine. So we have fixed the snapshots. Snapshot. And how much time do I have left? It's, I think, 2 minutes.
Yep, about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, now let's do a npm run release prepare. Okay. Awesome. So Ship.js automatically created a pull request for us. We just squash and merge it. Awesome. Now just check the actions. Yeah, I should have checked this. It's not a package right now, but it will be once this workflow runs. Awesome. Okay. Uh, there was an error. Uh, okay. Yeah. This package name, if there's a package name which is similar to a number format. So yeah, so it actually releases the package on the npm registry. But right now, since this name is very what do you say, it's a very common name. I guess there's a plugin called number format or something similar to this, and due to that npm, yeah, so there's a already a package called number format. So the problem is npm does not allow like very common names to prevent hacking. So yeah, so but once this npm run release triggers, it actually automatically publishes to the GitHub, the npm package registry, and to so I've used this Janak to basically create a package called VINTL. Uh, it's a package that I built using, so the demo that I showed today, it's actually the number format demo that I've already created in the VINTL package. And I assure you it works. But since the name was very common, it did not publish to the package registry. So yeah, it actually publishes. And if you want, you can actually go and check in the GitHub registry in the action section. Since it's open source, you can check it in the Ship.js trigger, and you'll find out that it has actually released the this package, INTL package, using the Ship.js trigger. So yeah, I think yeah, and so I think I've shot over time. So I'll share the screens with everyone. I have some plans in my head which I want to do, like provide an option to write documentation in VuePress, like provide an option to like integrate E2E testing using Cypress. Like there are a lot of things that are currently in my head which I've noted it down in the slides. And yeah, so that's about it. Since I'm running out of time, I don't want to take everyone's time. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Vinajak. That was really good. Let me just share my screen right now so you guys can see. So thank you so much. That was from Vue Pune. And we are gonna take a little break. So if you need to get up, you can do so now. And in the meantime, we're gonna be doing community shout outs. So our first community shout out is gonna be from Vue.js Vienna, and it's gonna be from Rob. And he's also gonna be talking a little bit about one of our sponsors. So Rob. Rob, you are muted.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Good. Can you see the screen as well?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so as Maria said, I just want to give a quick shout out to AppCont, which is my company, and we're sponsoring this event. I'm not going to spend much time. We're an IT services company mainly located in Austria and in Vienna. We are doing all sorts of IT stuff in terms of front end, back end, operations, and consulting. What it means for you if you're looking for a job is that if you are in or around Austria, we are looking for developers and also other positions. As you see, we have locations both in Austria, Germany, and also a location in South Africa currently. All sorts of different roles. We've been hiring also actively during COVID-19. Most relevant to this is, of course, the fact that we are doing some Vue projects. We've mainly been doing React and Angular, but the demand is getting bigger and bigger for Vue. I'm personally working on a Vue project and I love it, so there's possibilities there. Also backend, software testers, project managers, business analysts, and all sorts of different jobs. So if you are looking or are around Austria and would consider relocating, there's a multitude of jobs. So feel free to contact via the contacts here or contact me directly and I'll be happy to help out. That's about it. When it comes to shout out, I just want to say hi from us in Vue.js Vienna. It's been awesome to co-organize and to be able to collaborate with Maria and everyone else. So to everyone who knows me from Vue.js Vienna, hi, thanks for watching. It's awesome that we can be part of this. And with that, I say, let's continue the awesome show and thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Rob. So next up, we're going to give a shout out from Vue.js Antwerp. And we have Lars here, who's going to talk a little bit about his community.
Hi, yes, let me quickly share something here. There we go. So yeah, hi, I'm Lars. I'm one of the co-hosts for Vue.js Antwerp, along with my colleague Sibrin, who is also in the chat here somewhere I've seen. Thank you very much to everybody from the Vue Summit organization for letting us have the shout out as well. We're a relatively new or developing community in the region of Antwerp, slowly expanding also to Mechelen and more to the east of the country in Lummen, for example. For the moment, we mainly host talks about Vue.js, everything that's to do with Vue.js, and are looking into possibly going into workshops, for example. We're actively looking for speakers, so if anybody from Belgium really has an excellent project that they want to show, feel free to contact either my colleague Sibren, his Twitter handle is Carwack, or myself on Twitter, or on our Meetup page under meetup.com/vue-antwerp. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Really been enjoying the show, and there's lots more better to come, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So next up, I'm going to give a shout out from Vue Rally. Here, I'll share my screen really quick. So we've really enjoyed helping in putting these events together, and hopefully we'll continue to do so with more and more communities. And I do want to give a big shout out to Rob, who helps out with putting this event together, as well as Ben and Gusto, who are not here. You cannot see them right now, but they are here helping out on the background. So thank you so much. And a big shout out to Adrian, who has helped out a lot with our website for Worldview. Again, if you or your community is interested in joining us for our next event, reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to kind of connect you so that we can collaborate. So next up, I'm going to talk to you guys about what's coming up in the next hour. So we're going to hear from Vue Egypt about vValidate, Vue Slovakia about dynamic forms with Storyblock, and Vue New York City, and we're going to hear from Tessa. So why don't we get started? So Anne's going to introduce our next speaker. Oh, I think you are muted.
Hi, everyone. I changed my background secretly because I can't use the standard one, sorry. So, ta-da! Okay, so let me introduce, we will expecting Vue Egypt talking about what's new in V-Valid V4. Okay, let's welcome Vue Egypt.
Hello everyone.
Hello, I can hear you.
Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. First, I would like to talk about my community in Vue.js Egypt. So our community is a little bit new. We didn't actually manage to get any meetups done lately, but we were on track. Then the COVID-19 situation happened, so we were set back for until now. So hopefully we will get back on track real soon. Egypt has a very active community, and we are always participating in local meetups like Egypt.js and other meetups where we share some Vue talks and stuff like this. So hopefully we'll get things back to track soon. And as for what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to showcase we are going to have new in V-Validate V4. So a little bit about me. I am Abdurrahman Awad, a front-end engineer at Robusta Studio, and I am the creator of V-Validate, and I'm based in Cairo, Egypt at the moment. So this is my basic information. So V-Validate is a validation framework for Vue.js. You use it when you want to validate your forums and you want to make sure your users have a good user experience, so they know what errors they have before submitting the forms and stuff like this. But there are already multiple solutions for form validation. So what would make you use V-Validate? What's special about it? Well, your decision on why to use a certain library may come down to its popularity. V-Validate is currently the most popular validation framework for Vue.js. It is also follows a certain school of thought called declarative logic, meaning you specify your templates, you specify your logic or your validation logic in the template rather than in your JS. And this has some certain advantages and disadvantages at the same time. So we also have built-in rules, like about 20 something rules available for you. So you can directly get validation going real quickly. And we also support error messages generation and localization out of the box. We have about over 40 locales supported at the moment. And that's all thanks to the awesome community who contribute those messages. Okay, so these are the reasons for using V-Validate. And I had, in order to get another major version going, I had to look up what makes people mad about it, what upsets them about V-Validate, what's its current shortcomings. So from the issues that I keep constantly getting on the GitHub repository, I can largely see that there are a number of complaints on the larger bundle size. V-Validate at version 2 was actually pretty large. It was larger than Vue itself. It was about 160 kilobytes, which is really, really large. Of course, if you minified and gzipped it, it would be around 34, something like this, but it was large nevertheless. At V3, we improved this a lot. It's sitting at 10 kilobytes, I think, but nevertheless, it was also pretty large. Still, it could be better, is what I would say. And this was a major turnoff for a lot of people who keep chasing that 100 performance score on Google Lighthouse, because you always have JavaScript that you don't actually need when the app startups. So you need to delay loading these JavaScript. You need to reduce the kilobytes down the wire so you can get faster performance. Also, as the more complex you go with your forums, the more logic you gets put into the template, and that's kinda to be expected because V-Validate is a template-based validation framework. So you place your logic inside the template, so it's natural that it will get a little bit large, but at the current version v3 it was a little bit too verbose. Also, it became a little bit slow in terms of performance. So if you have like 100 input fields, it will start to lag, but nobody has 100 input fields for their forms, right? Well, it's not that case exactly. For example, if you are using a UI framework like Vuetify or Quasar or whatever, you will notice some slowdown with relatively mediocre number of form inputs, like maybe around 15. This is because of the validation mechanism that's currently being used. vValidate at the moment doesn't actually validate on input changes. It validates on re-renders, which triggers additional re-renders, which will cause a few problems for you. But it's hardly noticeable, but still there. Also, it's too verbose. The main complaint was it's too verbose. We are writing too much to get simple things going. So we are going to try to solve that. And because of all of this, we had also a lot of caveats surrounding rules and how rules are being created, how rules are being generated, and how to tackle certain specific situations when you want to display all the error messages of the forum and stuff like this. So it had a very large learning curve, and when I was writing the documentation for the current version, I noticed a lot of problems when I was writing them. I had this sort of circular dependence in the documentation where I needed to explain to you how to do validation, but first I needed to explain how to add rules. So this will slow down a little bit your getting that pixel to screen speed thing. So we need, the large learning curve was actually a problem that I needed to solve. And another problem that's hardly been reported, but it was still there, it's here and there, and it's very noticeable with third-party component libraries like Vuetify or Quasar or maybe Chakra UI in the future, I don't know. So its support were inconsistent because of vValidate, how it reads the template and tries to figure out which input to validate. So depending on how the authors of those UI frameworks allow you to author your UI, like using multiple vModel will almost always break vValidate. So this all of the stuff that kind of was an issue for vValidate v3 at the moment that I wanted to get fixed. So for vValidate v4, I had three main goals. First, it should support v3, of course. This is why we are all here after all. And it should also offer a better developer experience. It should allow you to do everything faster and easier. It also should allow you to build faster forms faster. You don't write a lot of template just to get some simple validation going, and you also guarantee that they have a pretty good baseline performance. So back to the drawing board. So I started thinking about how forums as a front end, how they are problematic. And they have a lot of issues. And this is pretty universal, no matter what is the framework you are using. If you are using React, if you are using Angular, it's the same exact problems. First, you have UI states. So if the input is focused, if it's dirty, if it's changed, maybe you want to handle all of those, maybe you want to handle only some of them. Anyways, we also have value tracking. So your vModels, your data, so it always should be updated to reflect the current state of the inputs. And this is also a problem with forms and makes them very verbose. Also, the whole idea of validating forms is you handle their submissions. You need to handle, after the data submitted, you want to send it to your API, you want to store it in a local storage, whatever you want to do. Also, you want to do validation on your fields, so the user doesn't get wrong data to the server and that they get quick feedback to their errors. And this is the whole point of client-side validation. Client-side validation is all about UX rather than security. It's not about security at all. It's about UX. And accessibility. Accessibility is often overlooked part of forums, and it's a huge issue for because it's not a lot of people take care of accessibility, but it's pretty easy once you learn how to. It's just some attributes you add. Of course, there are more to it than this, but for forums, it's mostly some attributes. So there is a lot to cover for forums, and it would be great if vValidate or any library that handles these specific things at a minimal level, allowing you to scale your application accordingly. At the moment, vValidate has always followed an approach of doing it all, or some philosophy like this. It didn't follow the core Vue philosophy of being a progressive framework. Vue has always been a progressive framework. It allows you to only pick up what you need, and you can get away with pretty much normal JavaScript. So this is the main goal for vValidate as well. It's to be back to be a progressive validation framework or library for Vue.js. So with Vue 3 coming up, we have the composition API, and this introduces a lot of complexity to the whole template-based validation, because it means we have a whole another API that either I want to use at all, or I should take advantage of it somehow. So I decided to take advantage of it and offer both validation flavors. So you will have both higher order components, and you will have a composition API available for you. So let's start with the latter because it's simpler of the two, and it's not the main focus of the library. vValidate will still focus on higher order components and the whole template-based validation aspect, but composition API is available for you if you need it. So let's start with the composition API. So this is how you get a simple field to be validated in vValidate v4. We have a function called useField. And what you do is you give it the field name, which acts as an identifier for the field, and you give it your validation rules. This validation rules is actually vValidate's old syntax of validation and still supported. So you can do this, and your field will be automatically, it will give you two properties. It gives you a lot more actually, but in this example, we are just using two. We are using something called a value and an error message. So useField, what it does, it doesn't actually care what you are rendering, because this is the whole point of the composition API. It's not about render logic, it's more about actual logic or imperative logic, JavaScript logic. So it gives you a value binding and an error message. You can, when you bind that value to your input, whenever it changes, vValidate will automatically validate it and will populate the error message reference we have there. So both of them are reactive references, and both of them will be kept in track. So whenever value is updated, vValidate will update the message accordingly. And this is all asynchronously, of course. There's a lot of attributes that you can use to customize your behavior, to change how certain things work, but this is a basic idea. We also have another function called useForm, which naturally we have useField. It's natural to have useForm. So useForm, what it does, it gives you two properties. It gives you a form object and a handle submit function. So the form object you can pass to useField from earlier. When you pass a form to useField, vValidate knows that those fields are now associated with this form. So you can create a submission handler with a handle submit. What a handle submit function is a higher order function. It accepts a callback. This callback will only execute if the entire form is valid. So you don't have to worry about handling invalid form state or anything like this. So you only write the code that you do when you have a successful validation, like sending data to the API directly. So this is what happens here. And it will automatically validate the fields before doing so. So it validates your inputs, and it checks if they are all valid, it will execute the callback. Otherwise, it won't do anything. So this is how you use Forum, and this is pretty much it for the composition API. I didn't dive into much details. There are a whole lot more to the stories than this, but I will leave this to later for the documentation to explain the entire possibilities with this. So let's focus on the main thing here, which is higher order components. So we have a new component called field. If you are using V3 at the moment, you know it as a validation provider. Well, the name changed because its function changed. So what field does, it renders a field, basically. It just doesn't act as a higher order component. It also acts as a field, actual field. So for our examples here, I'm rendering a native HTML input, nothing more. In the second example, I'm rendering a native input as well, but with a type email. So any attributes you might set as well will get passed down to your element that you are rendering at the end. And you can do pretty much something like this. Slots are also supported, so you can render select input and pass its options and treat it as a select input. So it acts like this. It uses the asprop, which is similar to how Chakra UI also uses an asprop to customize whatever root node is being rendered. But I think it's coincidence, maybe. I'm not sure. So yeah, it's the asprop that controls whatever gets rendered. You can also render your own custom components as long as they are registered globally. So if you are using a UI component library like Vue.js or Chakra UI or whatever, you can still place your input tag here and it will work as well in the asprop. So a couple of main things here you will notice is that the asprop controls the rendering. We have scoped slot support, but notice that we don't have a vmodel anywhere. And this is, you can still use vmodel on it as well, and it will work just fine, but we don't have it here for reasons that will come by later. So you can also go the full route of being a renderless component. You can skip providing the asprop and only use scoped slots, which is similar to what we currently have in V3. So the main difference here is that in V3, vValidate used to check your template for which node I'm going to validate. You have like 10 elements here. Which one is the input? Which one I will validate? So this was always a problem and always caused a lot of issues, including infinite render loops and many others, and fixing it was a nightmare. But with Vue 3, there are some improvements to the vNode API that allows us to do something that looks like this. So what vValidate now does, or the field component rather, it gives you access to a field object in the scoped slot. So that field object contains all the necessary information for vValidate to work properly. So it contains listeners, it contains value bindings, it contains everything. And all you have to do is bind that object to your input, whether it's a native input or a component, custom component, both will work just fine. So previously, vValidate would validate both of those inputs, but with V4, it will only validate the one you actually bound the field object on. So this one will be validated, the other one won't, this is a very common scenario because in certain frameworks or UI frameworks like Bootstrap, you have this thing called add-on where you have an input field and you have something appended to it, or before it. You might have a checkbox, you might have a select box, you might have practically anything. And only one of them would actually get validated. You want to validate one of them, not both. So this would work fine. Naturally, we also have a form component. It follows the same exact principle. It has an asprop that allows you to render whatever you want. You should almost always, in 90% of the cases, provide an asprop, and they should be equal to forum. This is most of the cases. If you are using a UI framework, you can specify your own framework component or whatever, it will work just fine. So what it actually here does is the form component is now what's in V3, we have something called a validation observer, but all it did was it's being a renderless component that did practically nothing. It just allowed you to validate the fields as a group and that's it. The form component here does a lot of heavy lifting for you because it is now a forum an actual forum, this change in mentality allows me to abstract some certain things away. So it's a forum. So what it does for you, if it checks if you have a submit handler on it or not. If you have a submit listener on it, it will validate all your fields and execute that handler only if everything is valid. If you don't have a listener, it will behave just like a normal, okay? It will behave just like a normal normal HTML form. It will submit the data. So this allows us to pretty much reduce the code we would have to write. Previously, you would say you would add your listener, then you will prevent default submission of the forum, then you will execute your handler if your fields are correct. But now you don't have to. You just provide your handler and it will work for you. Okay, we also have a component that's not required to use. You don't have to use it, but it's a convenient component. It's more like a developer experience component. Just allows you to do stuff faster, but it's not required. You can actually display error messages in many ways in V4. You can display them from the field component or the form component, but you also have access to an error message component. That component shows you form errors. As an added bonus, you get some accessibility attribute support. You get some screen reader enhancements, some stuff like this. I think I still might need to work on this a little bit. Might need help from the accessibility experts, I guess. And maybe Maria can help me. And I need, it also supports complex markup rendering with scoped slots. So you can actually render whatever you want as well. With the as prop or with a scoped slot, you can do both pretty much. So I know I'm pretty much saying a lot of information here, but all of this will be cleared up in the documentation. I'm just trying to cover as much as possible. So all you do is you write down your error message and you give it a name of an email, which is the same name as the field, and it will render your error message, and that's it. So we have a little bit more exciting changes, which is for validation. Now, validation, vValidate used to be this something custom called a schema validation, where you had to define your validators, and then you had to define their arguments, and you had to define their order, and a lot of stuff like this just to get messages to work. But this has been reworked in an almost non-breaking way. Some stuff are now breaking, of course, from V3 to V4, and there's no direct upgrade path, unfortunately. But this will allow us to do a little bit, write our forms much better than before. So for validation, our validation rules are now just functions. You can write function as a validator and that's it. You don't have to define them beforehand with extend like before, which is, it's pretty good because with template-based validation, you had to predefine all your rules beforehand, and that meant you import all your rules before you actually need them in your application, which meant the users would have to download a whole lot of kilobytes that won't get executed unless in some pages, maybe you don't have a forum at all on your website and you only have a sign-up forum, and this is where you need validation. It would be a waste to download those kilobytes just for every page, just for this page. So this allows us to, this moves the rules logic from being completely template driven to being a little bit imperative, which allows you to lazy load or load them when you actually need it. We also have the most exciting thing for me is support for YUP validation. YUP is a validation library for client-side JavaScript that is actually pretty good at what it does. It pretty much does data validation. It's not concerned with forms, so you have to hook it up to your forms in some way. And vValidate now has built-in support for it. So if you prefer to use YUP for your validations, it will work, and it will work just fine. It will save you a lot of time. And because of this, we have now two more features. We have field level validation, which always has been the case in vValidate, but now we also have a form level validation. So let's check those stuff out real quickly. So the built-in support for YUP, you import YUP, and you basically define your schema. Our field here is a string, it's a required field, and it's an email. And it's very readable and very easy to compose and reuse, and which is one of the great many advantages of Yap. So, and in your field, you just have to tell it your roles is the email schema, and that's it. Yap is, it will validate using Yap, and it will work just fine. If you still prefer the old syntax of defining your roles beforehand, you can still do this, and you can still use the same old syntax that's more Laravel-like. So if you prefer to do that, you can do that. We also have the most exciting thing as well is form level validation schema. This is not specific to Yap. You can still do it with the old validation syntax, but it's pretty useful with Yap, because Yap has been really good at doing this sort of schema validation thing. So what we do is, instead of providing validation schemas for each field, we provide one big schema for our entire form. So we define an object with Yap, and we give it a shape. That shape, it's just a nested fields in it. So we have an email, it's a string, required an email. A name, it's a string and it is required. A password, it is a string and it is required, and has a minimum of 8 characters. So what we do is, all we have to do is just use a prop called validation schema on the form component, and you pass it down the schema. And you don't have to do anything else. If you notice, all our fields don't have validations on them. They are just rendering the fields as is, and now the form is taking control of the validation. So this is pretty much, this will reduce a lot of code for you. Some minor highlights. The entire library core size is now sitting at 6.5 kilobytes, which is pretty good, I would say, considering the previous sizes. And it's still tree shakeable, so some stuff might not get imported when you are using it, so you might actually get even lower than 6.5. Some stuff got removed, like there is no more some things like required rule caveats, which is current vValidate users would probably understand, but no more hacks around the view rendering system. So V3 currently tries to jump in Vue's rendering system and kind of pushes its stuff, its injections, its listeners in vnodes, and that required a lot of careful code and a lot of code to just do that properly, and it's not even perfect. So there is no more of that. vValidate actually now uses pretty much a public API of Vue. It doesn't use anything that's private like before. Our built-in rules have been moved to another library, which is scoped under the vValidate namespace package. Everything is still under the same repo, but moving it to a sub-repo or another namespace allows us to better version stuff. So if I fixed some built-in rule, I don't have to bump a whole version for vValidate. The localization module was also removed to a sub-package for the same exact reason, just because I fixed someone's message. Because messages are always maintained by the community, so I always get PRs just fixes some typo in some certain message, and I don't release it until the stuff I'm working on for the actual core library is actually done. So this will allow me to publish this stuff more quickly. So I'm not sure how much time do I have, but let's see if I can get a real quick demo here. So, okay, I hope the code is clear. What we have now is an empty Vue 3 application. I have some styling here just to make things look pretty, and that's all. So what we are going to build here is a registration form, so a sign-up form. So we have like 3 fields. We have a name, an email, and maybe a password. So let's get our stuff going. First, we will need to import I'm not sure what Siri wants. First, we will need to import our form component and our field component.
Sorry to
So,
interrupt, but you have about 1 minute left.
okay, let me try. Okay, so I'm not sure I'm gonna make it, but let's try. So we have our form and field components here, and we are going to use them like this. Then we start defining our fields. So we are going to say this is an input field and it has a name of name, and we are not going to give it any validation at the moment. So let's duplicate this 3 times. Maybe give it a label as well. Why not? And I think this is good. And this is what we currently have. Let's duplicate this 2 more times. 1 for each field. So we have an email. And that field of type email. This one is a password. And this one of type password. So okay, now we have set up our fields. Maybe we need a submit button. Okay. All right. And okay, we have done pretty much everything we need. We just, if we try to submit now, nothing happens because we haven't defined the schema yet and we haven't done anything yet. So let's start by importing yup. And in our setup function, we can start defining our schema. So our schema looks like this. It's a yup object that has the following shape. It has an email, which is a string, an email, and it is required. We duplicate this 2 more times, 1 for the password, and instead of email, we say it has a minimum character of 8 characters. And for the name, we say just required. And okay, so now all we do is provide a schema, our validation schema for the form. And let's try things now. If I try typing anything, let me check if I got everything right. Okay. Okay, we might be missing a submit handler. In our submit handler, let's alert submitted, for example, to make sure everything is working fine. So we don't have anything showing. I tried to show error message, but didn't work because we don't have actually any logic to render error messages. So maybe I'm going too fast and I properly went over time. So sorry about this. We register our error message component finally, and we just give it the names of our fields. So name, an email, and a password. Now, if we try typing anything, you'll see that we got validation working fine for us. So let's try to fill everything and try submitting the field, and it pretty much submitted. I think maybe it didn't. Okay. Okay, let's log the values. So one more thing that vValidate does is that for the submission handler, it passes down the values for you. This is because we don't actually use vModels anywhere. And because of this, the submission handler will receive the form values. And you will notice that most of the time you won't actually need your vModels anywhere except inside submissions. So this is another assumption that vValidate does for you, and it works pretty well. If you still need access to the values, you can still use vModel and it will work just fine. So let's try submitting everything again. It doesn't work. Okay. All right. So let's. This is still working. All right. Okay, and now it submits. So this is what I have. There are some bugs that happened here that I will be sure to take a look at, but for the sake of time, I won't actually be, I don't have time to fix them. So
Yeah.
thank you for having me, and I'm sorry I went over time. So cheers.
Thank you so much. That was really, really good, actually. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quick, but next up we have, wait, wrong screen. But we have Gary from Vue Slovakia. He's gonna be talking about dynamic form custom validations with Storyblock. So if you wanna share your screen.
Yeah, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, yeah, so my name is Gary. I'm very glad to be here. This is like my first time talking at such an event, so it's a pleasure, and it's been great. It's been great to be listening to you, especially now with this validation talk, because I'm gonna follow up in that spirit. So let's just jump into the presentation and most of the live demo. I will be pretty straightforward. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So my talk is about dynamic forms with custom validation in Vue with Storyblock. So I'm going to talk about the solution with forms that basically our clients wanted to have a way to make forms fully customizable without any code. And that's what we did with our team. So web forms, as it was mentioned already, are some of the least beloved parts of developing websites. There are many ways and many reasons why is that the case. I would just pick out two things. The first is validation, which means that you need to validate the data according to your rules, and basically by that enable the submitting of the form. And the second thing that I would point out is the styling, because there are like certain states and UI cases that needs to be handled, like a successful input or some kind of mismatch or error. So that way it's also a little bit tricky to see to style it with CSS correctly. What I am using in my solution is basically Vue and Nuxt. On the inside, Vue.js, which is like similar packages vValidate. Both of them are great for what they're doing. We went with the vValidate in this like solution, but I'm pretty sure that we could do also with vValidate now with all the composition and updates coming up. For headless CMS, we use Storyblock, and for styling, Tailwind. And I would jump into the live demo. So I would just go through like a simple site. For example, let's say that you're a content editor, this is your site, and you would like to put here a contact form. So this site is built, as I mentioned, on Nuxt, on Storyblock. This is the Storyblock's like headless CMS visual editor. That means that you can like edit your page as a content editor here. This enables you to basically just like edit whatever the system allows you to do. And I would go on and basically put here a dynamic form component, which is built by us. So I would put dynamic form, and Here, as you saw, there were some presets. So I like pre-styled this thing because usually these presets are pre-styled or done by designers, and then the content editors just can come in and basically change the play with the form inputs and the validators. So what we achieved here is that we created like input fields, also with custom styling, which can be set as presets. I would go with this one. And this is fully editable. That means that you can change what kind of validators you have on this field, or what kind of data do you want to bring in, and also like the classic stuff, placeholder, label. So for example, here we have filled out first name, we have the unique identificator, we have the label and the placeholder type of first name. And the cool thing is now that we can add validators to this to make it be validated upon submission. So these are the ones I just, for the demo's sake, put here. So we have the required one. And the cool thing is about this one and these like custom validators, that you can put custom error messages as well. So let's say that not this field is required, but first name is required. So let's say if I want to submit, it's already like writing out the thing that is happening. So basically I haven't really put there anything. And you can see that it's in live editor mode, so you don't need to touch the code when the system is like up and running. So the other validators that we put here are basically from the Vue validate built-in validators, but we can build even custom validators upon that. But here are the ones that we basically pulled from. So these are automatically assigned in the code. And I would like to show you the article, which gonna be shared as well. But if you want to have a link, I can send you, where I basically describe this whole presentation in a lengthy article, where you can basically go on and set up this whole stack with this whole implementation. And the cool thing I just want to show you in the JavaScript part is that basically the whole JavaScript part is only around 50 lines. And with the template, which is actually dynamically assigning anything that you put in the headless CMS, which is another like 30, 40 lines, it comes in around 106 lines of code. And this basically enables the content editor to put any kind of validators on his fields and create fully customizable forms. So I would just finish up here. Let's say that I want to put not just the first name, but let's put a last name as well. I need a unique identificator, so it's gonna fire correctly to the backend. I can put last name is required, and I would put here like a more sophisticated validator, which is min length. So I would say that my last name should be at least 2 characters long. I can put here a custom error message as well. And here, if I save this, I have this running on my local host. If I restart my page, if I try to submit, it puts the required messages. So that's one thing. But if I try to write only one letter, it's automatically saying this should be at least 2 characters long. So if I fill it out, I have a local JSON server running. So if I submit, you will see that it's got submitted to the backend. So basically, with this system that we put on Storyblock and Next, with Validate, the content editors can basically create any kind of fields, not just like first name, last name, but numbers, emails, passwords. And these solutions are already like running in production enterprise projects with like radio buttons, selects, date fields. So it can be used for even like more complex forms than this one. This was just like a paradigm shift that I wanted to show you. It basically enables you to dynamically change your forms without any code changes once the component is live. So yeah, from my side, this is everything. My Twitter handle is Gary Siladi. You can find the article in this link. And also we have a YouTube video, which is basically me going through this process. So yeah, that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Gary. Next up, we have Tessa from Vue New York City, and she's going to be talking about, well, I guess I'll let her tell you because her title is really fun. So Tessa, do you want to share your screen? Let's see. Perfect.
Can you see slides? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and I see your slides, so perfect.
Awesome. Let me just move this chat. All right, so hi everyone. I'm Tessa, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a framework called Nuxt.js. So let's say that you're looking to build a new web app and you want something optimized, reactive, and performant. Perhaps naturally, you think of Vue, but when you go to download the tools you need, this thing called Nuxt seems to keep on popping up. But what's that?
Who's this interesting old fellow? I inquired of Monsieur Jean. To my surprise, he was distinctly taken aback. Don't you know? He asked. Don't you recognize him? He did look familiar. That's Nuxt.js himself. He arrived early this morning. This name will no doubt be familiar to the more seasoned persons among you.
Okay, so what exactly is Nuxt? Let's look at what their docs say. So they say that Nuxt is a framework designed to give you a strong architecture following official Vue guidelines. It's incrementally adoptable. It can be used to create everything from static landing pages to complex enterprise-ready web applications. Versatile by nature, it supports different targets, server, serverless, or static, and server-side rendering is switchable. But what does all that even mean? So today we're going to cover those general differences mentioned between Nuxt and Vue, including multiple built-in render targets, which can be static, single page application, and universal, as well as Nuxt-specific features, smart routing, and layouts. So let's start with the three possible render targets. The first type of render we'll discuss is static rendering. So static rendering is when we run a build step at a single predetermined point in time before someone tries to access our website. We run all the necessary JavaScript stuff like build steps and data fetching and create and store fully hydrated pages to be accessed by site visitors at some later point in time. So you can generally think of static rendering and pre-rendering as interchangeable. The distinction between the two, when there is one, seems to come out when pre-rendering is creating a cache for bot crawlers. So for example, when Google grabs a preview snippet of your site for search results, that's when there would be a distinction there. So pros to this are that the site loads quickly, it's cheap or free to host, and can have better search engine optimization or SEO because the data is already there when the bots crawl your website. Static rendering does also generally mean that you won't be able to customize the view based on the user. And while you can have some interactivity, it's unlikely to involve any kinds of partial page reloads like single page applications have, unless maybe 2020 is the year that we bring back iframes. However, that's not to say that statically rendered web pages can't have any dynamic aspect to them, especially if we combine them with other rendering techniques. So for example, you can create new pages on the fly unique to different users by combining static rendering with serverless or server-side rendering. In other words, by creating newly pre-rendered, as in created not on the browser side, pages as the user requests them. Now, the next type of render target is likely the most familiar one to our audience, which is the single page application, also known as a SPA or SPA for short. From the site visitor's perspective, after your site loads, what they see is the complete deal where all the data is populated and all the interactivity is already readily available. Then as they use your website, the spa might make small fetches or run JavaScript here and there to update the site incrementally as necessary. Finally, we have the universal render target, which is inclusive of server-side rendering. I think it's called universal because it renders both on the server side as well as the client or site visitor or browser side. The idea with SSR is that from the site visitor's perspective, when they visit, they're going to get a snapshot of what the site looks like. And once the page fully loads, everything that's meant to be interactive is interactive. So universal rendering has the same potential SEO benefits as statically rendered pages, with the customization and incremental data fetching power of SPAs. But it does require some kind of backends to be running to render those new pages as requested. And to highlight that point, one of the key differences between static and server-side rendering is that while in both cases, the pages are still initially built somewhere other than on the visitor's side on their browser, static rendering happens at that single point of time in advance, while server-side rendering happens in real time while the visitor is using your site. So one question you might be asking yourself is, if universally rendered pages start out like pre-rendered ones, how do they become dynamic and interactive? Well, that's a good question. So let's take a moment to talk about hydration. With server-side rendering, the idea is that you start by building your site on the server where your files are stored and fetching all the necessary data and fleshing out the HTML and CSS. Then once the site is sent to the visitor, we hydrate the page, or in other words, add interactivity onto that static DOM with event listeners, etc. However, it would be an incredible waste to send a fully built page to the visitor and then throw it away and replace it with the interactive version, right? So I think by default, Nuxt comes with this ability to say, hey, here's a fully pre-rendered DOM. We want to keep all of this. This is our first contentful paint. And then add on the interactivity with minimal replacements as needed, unless you specify otherwise with the client-only attribute. So now you might be thinking, well, if server-side rendering is so great, why wouldn't I use it all the time? Or maybe you're wondering about the time it takes to add that interactivity. So let's revisit that big door and little door again, but this time from our perspective as developers. With the SPA, we send over our index.html file with that root div that fetches all of the data and populates and interactivizes the DOM. So in other words, we send our page over very quickly, but then the visitor needs to wait while the page collects all the data it needs to make itself presentable before showing itself to the user. So that means, in other words, that the visitor is waiting until the first meaningful paint or render. In other words, when the browser has finished collecting and showing all of the data. With SSR, we want to send over our first contentful paint fully loaded, which means that when the visitor requests our page from the server, before sending it to them, at that point, we have to fetch all the data and populate the DOM, add the CSS, etc., so that the visitor will see a fully fleshed out page as swiftly as possible. However, once the page is painted on the visitor's browser, they still have to wait until it's hydrated or made fully interactive in order to be able to use it. And this waiting period is known as the time to interactive. In other words, SEO is not necessarily the only trade-off we have to weigh when comparing SPAs to SSR, but also what we want our visitor to experience while they wait for the time to interactive, or TTI. Now, this may be a surprise to some of you. I know it was for me, but Vue actually makes it possible to use all of these features we've discussed without buying into something like Nuxt, which you can learn more about on the Vue SSR page. So let's take a moment to talk about the features that are a little bit more unique to Nuxt, starting with smart routing. How many of you are familiar with Rails? I personally haven't used it that much, but this is where Nuxt starts to feel especially kind of Rails adjacent to me. So the idea with smart or automatic routing, and by the way, that's not the official name, they just call it routing, but I call it smart routing to distinguish it from the routing that we're more used to in a typical Vue app, which is to manually create all of our routes. But anyway, back to Nuxt. Based on your file structure, the routes and nested routes are automatically built for you, so you don't have to create them by hand. And you can even add route validation and create dynamic routes by prepending file or folder names with an underscore. The next and last special to Nuxt feature we're going to discuss today is layouts. So we can think of layouts as a way for a parent component to determine or augment all of the styles of the children with it. So in a typical Vue app, we can put all of our global styles in app.vue, and that will affect all of the child components in an SPA. And this is a lot like that, but with more compartmentalization. So maybe I want all of the children of one layout to have a certain style and all the children of another layout to have a certain style. And so this is what allows for that kind of like chunking of sub-global styles. So far, we've looked at Nuxt's features through a more optimistic lens, but as some of you may know, of course, all of that magic doesn't come for free. So if we have static or server-side rendering, that means we have to be more careful about when and how we fetch data. And smart routes and layouts mean we have to do everything in the Nuxt-specific or Nuxt-prescribed way. The framework can be customized, but that's a different talk. So let's ignore that for now and take all those extra variables out of the picture and consider why we might use Nuxt to create our next SPA. So why might Nuxt be right for you? Well, when you have a team that starts on a project together and has low attrition rates, it's relatively easier to keep everyone on the same page and understanding how the app works, right? In theory. But most, if not all of us, have probably had those times when we had to fix a bug in a section of the app that we've never seen before, and the architecture seems like it's from another planet, like maybe a very well-written planet, but still just unfamiliar to us. And so it takes a long time to figure out or onboard or like absorb the contextualization of what's going on, regardless of whether it's well designed or not. And so that difference in architecture can mean a longer onboarding time. And heaven forbid, almost all of your teammates just happen to quit, or you suddenly need to onboard a bunch of new people. Or even maybe none of that happens, you're just lucky, but you need to ask a teammate to help you debug some feature you're working on. So now they have to onboard onto the way your mind thinks. Having some kind of established structure in place for how code should be organized and architected can make it easier to problem solve together, to get your bearings in an unfamiliar part of the code, and to onboard developers who are new to your team, despite any individual differences that may exist between all of the team members' coding styles. So that concludes our overview of Nuxt versus Vue.js for today. Here's a list of resources you can use to learn more about Nuxt and static rendering and figure out what's best for you. This has been Adventures in Nuxt. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Tessa. Your presentations are always so creative. Very good job. So next thing we're gonna do, I know we're running a little bit over time, but I do want to take a little bit of time to do another community shout out. So here we have JavaScript and Friends. So Bhaskar, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Maria, for organizing World View event. And thank you all for the great talks. We just share the screen. I don't want to take enough time of all yours. You're able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So we run all Vue.js meetups, Angular meetups, React.js meetups, and we also conduct annual conference in Columbus, Ohio. So this year, our conference is going to be a virtual conference, and we would like to invite all the community friends to join us at this year's event. You can always help us. You can, if you are interested to volunteer, sponsor, participate, or spread the word, you are always welcome to do that. You can reach out to us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can always check our website. Our next meetup is on July 22nd. We are doing a Vue.js meetup with Kevin Griffin. Feel free to check it out. And our conference is in August 13th and 14th. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar. Okay, so next up, I just want to give a shout out to all the communities that participated in this event. Some of them couldn't be here, some of them had to leave a little earlier. So again, this is a contribution from all over the communities. And if you're interested, please reach out to one of us. We do have a private Worldview Discord. And if you're a community leader or an organizer of a Vue community, please reach out and we'll be glad to add you. Again, thank you so much to our sponsors. And yes, thank you so much. And I hope you guys all have a great day.
Thank you for the translator as well. Thanks for the hard work. Actually, it's 2:11 in the morning, actually. Like it's 2:11 a.m. in Beijing. Thank you for the hard work. Thank you very much. And thank you for the Chinese audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.